When you open your eyes each morning, there's a brief, powerful window of time, just a few minutes, where your mind is most open, most impressionable. That moment, right before the distractions, the noise, the emails, the texts, right before you even fully remember the demands of your day, that's when you have the most influence over how your brain will behave and respond to the next 16 hours. It's not just a poetic idea, it's rooted in neuroscience. What you tell yourself during those early waking moments doesn't just inspire you, it wires you. And that's why you must be intentional. That's why self-talk in the morning is not optional, it's foundational. Think of your brain like a theater stage. When you wake up, the curtains rise, the lighting is soft, the audience is quiet, and you get to decide what the first act will be. If you walk on stage and begin your day with fear, stress, or insecurity, that's the script your brain will follow. But if you start with clarity, intention, and strength, if you choose your words with care, then you're setting a neurological tone that can carry you through uncertainty, setbacks, even pressure. The morning is when your brain is most receptive to suggestion, not because of some mystical reason, but because your neurochemistry is in a state of transition. You're moving from sleep, when the mind is largely unconscious, to wakefulness, when awareness kicks in and begins collecting data, forming beliefs, assigning meaning. And in that transition, there's an opening, a moment when what you say to yourself actually changes how you feel, how you think, and how you act. I often explain that your first thoughts are like calibration tools. Imagine waking up and immediately checking your phone. What's happening there? You're allowing the outside world to dictate your inner rhythm. Notifications, messages, problems, all of that starts to push your nervous system into a reactive state. You've skipped over the opportunity to calibrate. But when you pause, when you claim just 60 seconds to say something intentional, something that affirms who you are and who you're becoming, you reclaim control. That 1 minute may be the most important minute of your entire day. Now, some people might say, well, I'm not really a morning person, or I don't know if saying things to myself actually works. But here's the reality. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a truth and a repeated message. What matters is repetition and emotional intensity. If you keep saying something, especially when your brain is in that early, impressionable state, it begins to feel real. And once it feels real, your behavior starts to follow. That's not self-help fluff. That's basic neuroplasticity. You can literally change the wiring of your brain by changing what you consistently focus on and repeat. So, if you start each morning telling yourself, I am grounded, I am capable, I am focused on what matters, you are reinforcing circuits that support clarity, confidence, and emotional regulation. This is not about pretending things are perfect. It's not about toxic positivity. It's about priming your system to meet the day with purpose instead of passivity. You are choosing to lead your own psychology instead of letting the world do it for you. And that choice, that leadership, has a compounding effect. Over time, you'll notice it in how you handle stress, how you interact with others, how quickly you bounce back from setbacks. And all of that begins with the first words you say to yourself before the world has a chance to say anything at all. Even if you only have a few moments, use them. Start small. It can be as simple as, I am in control of my attention today. Or, today is mine to shape. The point is to speak with intention before the rest of the world speaks over you. That is your mental armor. That is your emotional calibration. You do that, and you're not just surviving your day, you're designing it. Because the first voice you hear in the morning should be your own, and it should be telling you the truth about your potential. Every morning, one of the most important things you can tell yourself is this: I am in control of my mind and reactions. That simple phrase may not seem groundbreaking at first, but it's one of the most powerful truths you can carry into your day. Because here's what most people don't realize. Your brain is designed to keep you alive, not necessarily to keep you calm or clear. It's scanning for threats, interpreting signals, making assumptions, all before you've had your first sip of coffee. So, unless you actively remind yourself that you are in charge, your nervous system will often make that decision for you. What does it mean to be in control of your mind? It doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending everything's fine when it's not. It means recognizing that between a stimulus and your response, there's a moment, a gap, and in that gap, there's choice. Something can happen that frustrates you, scares you, or throws you off, but in that gap, you can decide how to respond. That's control. That's where your power lies. This morning affirmation isn't about being perfect. It's not about eliminating all negative thoughts or avoiding stress. It's about building the awareness that no matter what the world throws at you today, you have agency. You can decide where your attention goes. You can decide how long you dwell on that negative comment. You can decide whether to escalate or de-escalate an argument. And those micro decisions made again and again are what shape your entire day. There's a very real biological reason why this matters. Your brain and body are in constant conversation. If your mind believes something is a threat, even if it's just an email or a sideways glance, your body responds as if you're in danger. Cortisol rises, your heart rate changes, your breathing shifts, your focus narrows. That's useful in a life-threatening situation, but completely counterproductive when you're trying to give a presentation, navigate a tough conversation, or just stay grounded. So when you begin the day by telling yourself, I am in control of my mind and reactions, you're not just saying words. You're interrupting that automatic stress loop. You're installing a buffer between you and reactivity. That single reminder puts you back in the driver's seat. Most of us move through our day in a kind of trance, reacting to things as they come, without pausing to question if those reactions are helping or hurting us. And what happens over time is that we start to believe our emotions are in charge, that our anger, anxiety, or doubt are steering the ship. But they're not. Emotions are signals, not directives. You can feel frustration without becoming frustrated. You can feel anxious and still choose to act with confidence. That's the distinction. And it starts with what you say to yourself before the day even begins. The beauty of telling yourself this each morning is that it trains your brain to pause. It creates a habit of mental space. And in that space, there's wisdom. It might be the wisdom to take a breath instead of snapping back. It might be the wisdom to step away instead of spiraling. It might just be the wisdom to let something go, because you realize it doesn't deserve your energy. That kind of control doesn't happen by accident. It happens by repetition. It happens because you've decided that your peace is more important than your impulses. And here's something else. It's not just about how you react to problems. It's also about how you react to opportunities. Sometimes we sabotage ourselves not because we're incapable, but because we're conditioned to doubt. So when a challenge appears, when it's time to step up, we freeze or procrastinate or talk ourselves out of it. That's not a lack of ability. That's a lack of practiced control over your inner voice. But when you've made it a habit to affirm that you are in control, you start meeting opportunity with curiosity instead of fear. You start trusting your capacity. You start realizing that your mind can be a tool, not a trap. This kind of inner leadership is what separates those who feel constantly overwhelmed from those who seem grounded, even under pressure. It's not magic. It's not some trait you're born with. It's trained, and it starts with one clear message, spoken every morning, before the world gets noisy. I am in control of my mind and reactions. Because no matter what today holds, that simple truth can change everything. There's something quietly powerful about waking up and reminding yourself, today is a fresh start. It's easy to overlook how significant that thought is, especially when your brain is already reaching for yesterday's problems, unfinished tasks, or whatever happened last week that didn't go your way. But here's the truth. Your nervous system, your psychology, even your biochemistry, they all benefit when you interrupt that spiral and deliberately say, "This is a new beginning." Every day, your brain wakes up with a certain level of pattern recognition already running. You're not just recalling events, you're recalling emotional states. If you were stressed yesterday, your brain will be biased towards stress this morning. If you were frustrated, it'll look for more things to feel frustrated about. That's because your mind naturally tries to conserve energy by repeating what it already knows. But just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's useful. And just because you felt something yesterday doesn't mean it needs to own you today. This is why it matters to declare, out loud or in your head, today is a fresh start. You're sending a clear signal to your brain that it doesn't have to run yesterday's software. You're not ignoring what happened. You're not pretending things are perfect. You're simply choosing not to live in a mental rerun. And when you do that consistently, something amazing happens. Your brain starts looking forward instead of backward. There's a principle that your nervous system follows. It's called neuroadaptation. The more often you feed your brain a message, the more it adapts to that message as the new norm. So when you consistently tell yourself that each day is a clean slate, your brain gets better at letting go of unnecessary tension. It becomes more efficient at staying in the present. That's not just helpful for your mind, said it's critical for performance. Because when your attention is stuck in the past, you're not responsive. You're reactive, and there's a big difference. Think about it like this. If you carried everything from yesterday into today, every regret, every frustration, every misstep, it's like starting a race while dragging a full backpack. Sure, you can still move forward, but it's slower, heavier, and harder than it needs to be. But when you let go, when you truly lean into the idea that this morning is a reset, you move lighter. You think clearer. You become more available to what's happening right now. And it's not just about mind. It's about biology. When you focus on the present moment and cut ties with unproductive rumination, you reduce stress hormone activity. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision making, attention, and creativity, functions better. Your nervous system starts to regulate itself. You're more calm, more intentional. That's the kind of shift that doesn't just help you survive the day, it helps you shape it. So why is this morning affirmation so important? Because you are constantly being pulled into mental loops. Social media wants your attention. The news wants your anxiety. Your to-do list wants your urgency. And before you've even fully woken up, you're already sprinting toward overwhelm. But when you pause and say, "Today is a fresh start," you are reclaiming authority over your time, your mind, and your energy. You are reminding yourself that no matter what happened yesterday, you are not obligated to carry it. And this doesn't mean that consequences disappear or that accountability fades. What it means is that your identity is not chained to your mistakes. You're allowed to grow. You're allowed to improve. You're allowed to do better today simply because it is today. That permission to begin again is one of the most powerful psychological tools you have access to. It's how you break cycles. It's how you shift momentum. It's how you give yourself a chance to evolve instead of repeat. One of the fastest ways to stay stuck is to believe that today is just an extension of all your past failures. But one of the fastest ways to grow is to wake up, take a deep breath, and declare, "This moment is new. This day is mine. I get to decide what I bring into it." That declaration isn't fluff. It has real impact on how your brain filters information, how your emotions are regulated, and how resilient you are when something unexpected hits. So tomorrow morning, before you dive into schedules or news feeds or texts, just take 10 seconds, sit with yourself. Look around, breathe, and say it today is a fresh start. Not because it erases the past, but because it frees you from being defined by it. Because no matter what came before, this moment is your chance to begin again. One of the most important things you can say to yourself every morning is something that many people actually struggle to believe. I am worthy of success, love, and happiness. Now, for some, that might sound simple, obvious even, but for many others it's uncomfortable. It feels unearned. It feels like something you need to achieve before you can claim it. But worthiness is not something you work your way into. It's something you realize about yourself. And when you say that to yourself in the morning, when you remind yourself that you are already worthy, it changes how you approach everything. See, your sense of worth drives more than just confidence. It influences your decisions, your relationships, your boundaries, even your capacity to take risks. If deep down you believe you're not worthy of happiness, you'll sabotage the things that bring you joy. If you think success belongs to other people, you'll hesitate when opportunity knocks. If you think love has to be earned through perfection, you'll struggle to receive it, even when it's right in front of you. So that one sentence, I am worthy of success, love, and happiness, isn't just a feel-good line. It's a neurological reframe. It helps your brain update its self-image. The brain builds internal maps, what it believes to be true about you, your place in the world, your capabilities, and your limits. If you grew up in an environment where you were criticized more than encouraged, where your wins were minimized or your emotions dismissed, your brain might have started drawing a distorted map. One where your worth depended on achievement or approval or being useful to others. So even as an adult, when life offers you something good, your brain doesn't know what to do with it. You might feel like you don't deserve it, or that it's only temporary, or that the other shoe is about to drop. That's not reality, that's programming. But the beautiful thing is, those internal maps are not permanent. Your brain is adaptable. Neuroplasticity allows you to reshape beliefs through intentional repetition. And your morning self-talk is the perfect time to do that. When you wake up, your brain is in a more suggestible state. The filters that normally screen out information, like the reticular activating system, are still adjusting. So, what you say to yourself in those first few minutes gets in deeper. It starts to rewrite the story. So, let's talk about success. A lot of people define it externally. Money, titles, recognition, and that's fine, but success is also about alignment. Living in a way that reflects your values, using your strengths, showing up fully in your life. And to even pursue that kind of success, you have to believe you're allowed to have it. Otherwise, you'll stay in cycles of hesitation or burnout. You'll work hard but never feel satisfied. But when you tell yourself you are worthy of success, you start to claim it internally first. You stop chasing it as a form of validation, and instead, you move toward it as an expression of who you are. Love is the same way. So many people crave connection but struggle to accept love without conditions. Why? Because somewhere along the way, they learned that love had to be earned, be perfect, be quiet, be helpful, don't take up too much space. But real love isn't about performance, it's about presence. And when you wake up and remind yourself that you are worthy of love, just as you are, you start to allow it into your life in ways that feel real and safe. You stop trying to prove yourself, you stop shrinking, you stop overcompensating, and instead you just receive. And then there's happiness. For a lot of people, happiness feels indulgent, like there's always something more important to focus on. Responsibilities, deadlines, stress. But happiness isn't a reward you get once everything is done. It's a state that your nervous system needs. Joy, laughter, moments of peace, these things aren't luxuries. They're signals to your brain that life is not just survival. They create balance, they help regulate your emotions. They build resilience, and telling yourself every morning that you are worthy of happiness isn't selfish. It's strategic, because the more you believe you're allowed to feel good, the more space you create for it to exist. What happens over time is this: your brain starts aligning your behavior with your beliefs. When you believe you're worthy, you start treating yourself that way. You speak differently, you move with more confidence, you don't chase people who can't meet you, you don't settle for environments that deplete you. And when you do that long enough, the world begins to reflect that belief back to you. So yes, it might feel awkward at first. It might feel unfamiliar, but that's okay. New beliefs often do. What matters is that you keep saying it. Every morning, before the doubts creep in, before the noise starts, say it even if your voice shakes. Say it until your brain catches up, because the truth is you don't have to earn your worth. You just have to remember it. Every morning, tell yourself this: my actions today matter. It's one of the most grounding, empowering things you can say to yourself, because we live in a time when it's really easy to feel like our individual efforts don't count. You wake up, check your phone, see everything happening in the world, and suddenly the things you are going to do today feel small, almost insignificant. But that mindset where you start to believe your actions don't have weight is exactly what leads people to check out, to go numb, to stop showing up fully in their own lives. And the truth is, your actions do matter, not just in some abstract, motivational sense, but in a real, biological and psychological way. The human brain is built to respond to purpose. When your brain understands that what you're doing has meaning even on a small scale, it shifts how your nervous system operates. You become more alert, more focused, more emotionally regulated. That's not an opinion, it's how your physiology responds to meaning. And yet, one of the most common sources of low mood, low drive, and burnout is this creeping belief that what we're doing doesn't matter anymore. That we're just going through the motions, that nobody notices, nobody cares, and nothing's changing. That's exactly why it's so important to rewire that belief every single morning. My actions today matter. And let's be clear, we're not just talking about big actions. We're talking about what might seem like the smallest things. Making your bed, drinking water first thing, getting sunlight in your eyes early in the day, sending that message you've been avoiding, starting the workout you don't feel like doing. The reason these things matter isn't because they're grand or impressive. It's because they create momentum. They activate systems in your brain that say, I'm in motion, I'm intentional, I'm contributing. That's what creates a feeling of progress. And that's what starts to build confidence, not just self-esteem in theory, but earned trust in yourself. When you say to yourself each morning that your actions matter, you're also reminding your brain to engage. Because the moment you believe something doesn't matter, your energy follows, your focus drops, your emotional regulation weakens. Your brain starts deprioritizing the task in front of you. But when you see it as meaningful, even if it's just writing one sentence, making one decision, or helping one person, you change the quality of how you show up. And over time that adds up. That's how identity is built, not by occasional breakthroughs, but by consistently showing up when it would be easier not to. And here's something most people overlook. Your actions don't just matter in terms of outcomes. They matter because they're shaping you. Every time you follow through on something, you send a message to your brain. I do what I say I'll do. And every time you avoid something, the opposite message is reinforced. That inner dialogue becomes your baseline. So when you start your day reminding yourself that your actions matter, you're choosing to reinforce integrity. You're choosing to build trust in your own follow-through. That trust becomes the foundation for everything else, whether it's setting boundaries, chasing goals, or staying grounded in chaos. You also never know who is being influenced by what you do. You may think no one is watching. You may think your effort goes unseen. But the truth is, your energy ripples outward. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you move through the world, it all has an effect. And while you can't control how people respond to you, you can control how you show up. When you act with intention, when you remind yourself that even your smallest effort today has meaning, you radiate something that others can feel, whether they ever say it out loud or not. Even your internal actions matter. How you speak to yourself, how you choose to shift your focus, how you manage your attention. Your thoughts influence your biochemistry. They affect your emotional state, which affects your decisions, which ultimately affect your life. That's why this morning affirmation isn't just motivational. It's structural. It helps rewire your relationship with effort. And that rewiring is what leads to real, sustainable progress, not from pushing harder, but from aligning better. So every morning, before the world distracts you, before stress takes over, before comparison starts creeping in, pause and remind yourself, my actions today matter. Because they do. They matter to your body, they matter to your mind, they matter to the version of you that you're trying to become. They may not always get applause, they may not always be obvious to others, but they are carving your path moment by moment. Because even the smallest action, when repeated with intention, can completely transform the course of your life. One of the most powerful things you can tell yourself in the morning is something simple, often overlooked, but completely transformative. I can handle whatever happens today. Now, that doesn't mean everything will go the way you want it to. It doesn't mean the day will be smooth, predictable, or even kind. But it means that no matter what shows up, stress, frustration, unexpected news, doubt, pressure, you're capable of meeting it with resilience. You have more capacity than you think. And starting your day by recognizing that truth shifts you from living in fear of what might happen to stepping into confidence that you'll navigate whatever comes. Your brain is a prediction machine. Its primary goal is to keep you safe, so it constantly scans for potential threats, social, emotional, physical, and in doing so, it often leans toward anxiety, toward imagining everything that could go wrong. That's not a character flaw. That's just biology. But if you don't interrupt that loop, you'll start the day already tense, already anticipating stress, already rehearsing worst-case scenarios. That internal noise becomes your background operating system, and it shapes your decisions, your tone, your posture, everything. But when you deliberately say to yourself, I can handle this, you're recalibrating that system. You're telling your brain, yes, things might go sideways, but I have tools, I have strength, and I'll adapt. The key is not to pretend that the day will be easy. The key is to know that you'll still show up, even when it's not. That's the foundation of real mental toughness. Because toughness isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending to be bulletproof. It's about staying grounded under pressure. It's about responding instead of reacting. It's about keeping your nervous system regulated enough to think clearly when it counts. And that kind of resilience is trainable. It's built day by day, through intentional repetition and practice. And it starts with self-talk. You can literally use language to shift your physiological state. When you tell yourself, I can handle whatever comes my way, you're not just soothing your mind. You're changing your heart rate variability, your breath rhythm, your muscle tension. You're activating the parts of your brain responsible for executive function, impulse control, and rational thought. That's what allows you to stay composed when other people are spiraling. That's what gives you the presence to de-escalate conflict, or make a better decision in the moment, or stay focused when things get messy. And here's the thing, most people don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because they panic. They lose the thread. They get overwhelmed and freeze or bail or implode. So if you can train yourself to begin each day by saying, no matter what comes up, I'll stay in the game, you're building a buffer, a psychological shield. You're not avoiding the hard stuff. You're preparing for it. Sometimes life hits you with things you didn't ask for, things you never would have chosen. A curveball in your career, a challenge in your health, a strain in a relationship. And those are the moments where this practice becomes real, because that's when your inner dialogue matters most. Not when things are going well, but when they aren't. That's when you decide, am I going to spin out, or am I going to breathe, reset, and face what's in front of me? And even on a smaller scale, when your day gets hijacked by inconvenience, or a plan falls apart, or someone misunderstands you, you still have that same choice. Your resilience isn't just tested in crisis. It's tested in the mundane, the repetitive, the frustrating. And every time you respond with calm instead of chaos, you strengthen that internal muscle. This doesn't mean you don't feel stress. It means you learn to process it without becoming it. That's a key distinction. Stress is a physiological state. It's not your identity. And when you remind yourself each morning that you're equipped to deal with stress, your body responds accordingly. You reduce anticipatory anxiety. You increase psychological flexibility. And you create the internal conditions for focus, clarity, and momentum. It's also important to remember that you don't have to feel confident in order to act with confidence. Sometimes the belief comes after the action. Sometimes you say, I can handle this, before you fully believe it. And then you prove it to yourself through the way you move through the day. That self-evidence builds trust. And over time it becomes your default. So tomorrow morning, before the world throws anything your way, ground yourself in this one sentence. Say it slowly. Say it with breath. Say it until your body believes it. I can handle whatever happens today. Because you can.